Scourge of Malice or Malice Scourge or Mare Scourge was a 38-gun ship ordered by George Clifford, 3rd Earl of Cumberland. She was built and launched at Deptford Dockyard in 1595. The Earl used her as his flagship during raids on the Spanish Main, where she provided additional force to support his fleet. She was later renamed Red Dragon and used by the East India Company during at least 5 voyages to the East Indies. The first recorded performance of the play Hamlet took place on the ship in 1607, as it was anchored off the coast of Sierra Leone. In the 1590s, the Earl of Cumberland's passion for nautical adventure was at its peak. He lacked a vessel able to support his hired fleet. The only option he had to get a sufficiently armed vessel was to borrow from the Queen, something which would give her significant control over his actions. As a result, he declared that he would have his own ship built, the best and largest ship that had been built by any English subject. The ship is variously recorded as being between 600 and 900 tons, and was named by Queen Elizabeth I Scourge of Malice. Having had Scourge of Malice built, the Earl then departed in its new ship, along with 3 smaller vessels, on another expedition to raid the Spanish Main. However, the fleet had only travelled as far as Plymouth when he was recalled to London by the Queen. He returned, leaving the remainder of the small fleet to continue without him. On their return, he travelled out with them again. However, on this voyage, Scourge of Malice was badly damaged in a violent storm only 40 leagues from England, her mainmast being damaged, and he was once more forced to return to seek repairs. With the repairs completed, the Earl set sail once again on 6 March 1598, Scourge of Malice now the flagship of a fleet numbering 20 vessels. After Sir Francis Drake's defeat at San Juan in 1595, the Earl of Cumberland was under orders to capture Brazil from the Spanish. Following Drake's attack, the fort at San Juan was left with 200 men and 150 volunteers, bolstered by a further 200 men when reinforcements arrived from Spain. By the time the Earl's fleet appeared off the coast of the islands on 16 June 1598, many of the Spanish soldiers had lost their discipline and turned to theft due to dysentery and the lack of food. 2 initial attacks by the English were fruitless, costing them lives without any gain, the Earl of Cumberland himself almost drowning trying to cross the San Antonio Channel. Knowing that the Spanish were short of supplies, the English preferred to lay siege to the castle of El Morro, rather than destroy it, and on 29 June, allowed the Spanish commander and troops to leave. During the attack on the town, the English had only lost 200 men, but over the next 2 months they lost 400 to an epidemic of dysentery, and after occupying the island for only 65 days, Cumberland abandoned the fort. Before they left, the English sacked the town, burning houses to the ground and stealing whatever caught their eye, items that included the cathedral bells and 2,000 slaves. The fleet continued to torment the Spanish settlements in the West Indies, achieving far more for Cumberland's country than his own wealth. From sale of his captures he only made about 1/10 of the money that he had invested in the voyage. The fleet lost 2 vessels, and over 1,000 men. Formed on 31 December 1600, the East India Company's first voyage departed on 13 February 1601. The flagship of the 5-vessel fleet was Scourge of Malice, purchased from the Earl of Cumberland for a circumflex £3,700. On a more peaceful mission, the East India Company renamed the vessel Red Dragon and granted command of the vessel to James Lancaster. The other vessels in the fleet were Hector, Ascension, Susan, and Gift, a small victualler. In spite of their February departure, the fleet did not clear the English Channel until early April due to delays from contrary winds. They landed at the Canary Islands, and then, keeping too close to Africa, fell into the doldrums, where they remained for a month. They replenished their provisions from a captured Portuguese vessel en route, but much of the fleet was affected by scurvy by the time they arrived at Table Bay on 9 September. Lancaster had managed to prevent the sailors on his own ship from being so stricken by regularly dosing them with lemon juice, and he was forced to send members of his own crew to help man the other ships into the harbour. They stayed at Table Bay for 7 weeks before departing, navigating along the eastern side of Madagascar. Since leaving England, they had lost more than a fifth of their crew complement across the fleet, but those that remained were fit and healthy. Adverse wind conditions, and a second bout of scurvy, forced the fleet to drop anchor in Andongil Bay, where they remained from Christmas Day through until 6 March 1602. On the resumption of their journey, they reached the Nicobar Islands after 2 months' further travel, and took the opportunity to take on water and trim their vessels, staying for 3 weeks,